In the last videos, we talked about something most people never question, the idea that your mind is not fully under your control, that there is something beneath your awareness influencing your thoughts, your reactions, and your behavior. But there's something even more unsettling than that. What if the person you believe you are is not the real you? Carl Jung believed that the identity you carry, the version of yourself you present to the world, is not your true self. It is something constructed, a mask, something built over time to adapt, to survive, to fit into expectations. He called it the persona. From a young age, you learned how to behave. You learned what was acceptable, what was rewarded, and what was rejected. Slowly, you started shaping yourself based on those signals. You became what the world expected you to be. But in the process, something else happened. You lost connection with parts of yourself, not because they disappeared, but because they didn't fit the image you were trying to maintain. So you pushed them aside, you ignored them, you hid them, and over time, the mask became your identity. You started believing that this version of you is who you really are. But Jung warned that this is an illusion, because the persona is not the self. It is a role, and the more attached you become to that role, the more disconnected you become from what's real. That's why sometimes you feel like something is missing, like you're playing a part instead of living as yourself, like there's something deeper inside you that you don't fully understand. That feeling is not random. It's a signal that what you think you are is only part of the truth. The persona is not something you chose consciously. It was built slowly, through years of experience. Every time you adjusted your behavior to be accepted, every time you hid a part of yourself to avoid rejection, every time you changed who you were to fit in, it evolved. At first it was small, just minor adjustments, but over time it became more defined, more structured, more convincing, until eventually it felt like you. That's what makes it so difficult to recognize. Because the persona doesn't feel fake, it feels natural, it feels like your identity. But Carl Jung believed that the more you identify with the persona, the more you suppress your true self. And that suppression doesn't disappear. It becomes part of your unconscious, it becomes the shadow. And now you have a division inside you, one part that you show to the world, and another part that remains hidden. The problem is not that this division exists. The problem is that you are only aware of one side. You believe the persona is all there is, but it's not. And the longer you live without questioning it, the more disconnected you become from who you really are. That's why people often feel lost, even when everything in their life seems fine. That's why they feel empty, even when they achieve what they thought they wanted, because they are living as a version of themselves, not as their full self. And deep down, something knows it. There are moments when the persona starts to break. Not completely, but just enough for you to notice something is off. You feel out of place in situations where you're supposed to feel comfortable. You say things that don't feel true. You act in ways that don't fully represent who you are. And there's a quiet awareness, a subtle feeling that something isn't aligned. Most people ignore it. They push through. They continue playing the role. They convince themselves that this is just how life is, that everyone feels this way. But Jung believed that these moments are important because they reveal the gap between who you are and who you think you are. And that gap can't be ignored forever. The more you suppress your true self, the more pressure builds beneath the surface. It doesn't disappear, it waits, and eventually it starts to express itself in frustration, in confusion, in sudden changes in behavior. That's when people feel like they don't recognize themselves anymore, because they've been living disconnected for too long. And now something is trying to reconnect. Carl Jung believed that the journey toward understanding yourself is not about becoming someone new. It's about uncovering what has always been there. But that process is not comfortable, because it requires you to question everything you think you are. Your beliefs, your behaviors, your identity. It forces you to confront the possibility that much of what you consider yourself is actually constructed. And that can feel destabilizing. Because if you're not who you thought you were, then who are you? That question doesn't have a simple answer, and that's why most people avoid it. They prefer certainty over truth. even if that certainty is built on something incomplete. But Jung believed that avoiding this question comes at a cost, because the more you ignore your true self, the more disconnected you become, and that disconnection shows up in subtle ways, in dissatisfaction, in restlessness, in a constant feeling that something is missing, even when everything seems fine on the surface. The only way to reconnect with your true self is through awareness, not by rejecting the persona, but by recognizing it for what it is, a role, a useful one, but not the whole truth. Jung believed that integration is the key, bringing together the different parts of yourself instead of separating them. That means acknowledging the shadow, understanding your patterns, questioning your identity, and allowing yourself to see beyond the mask. This is not about becoming perfect. The truth is simple, but not easy to accept. You are not who you think you are, not completely. What you call yourself is a combination of roles, patterns, and adaptations. But beneath all of that, there is something deeper, something real. And the moment you begin to question your identity, you take the first step toward finding it. Because awareness changes everything. Once you see the mask, you can no longer fully believe it. Once you recognize the patterns, you can begin to change them. And once you understand that your identity is not fixed, you realize something powerful. You are not limited to the version of yourself you've been living as. You can go deeper, and maybe, for the first time, you can discover who you really are.